And we continue at 2:07 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
Here's a little more of Kevin DeLeon's pitch to get you on the Metro.
I'm not going to state the obvious about today, because today is hellaciously hot, and it's getting hotter, and tomorrow is going to be even hotter. And this is due to extreme weather patterns from our carbon footprint.
Carbon?
Could you imagine him on the Weather Channel?
Why, yes. Yes, I can.
It is hot as hell.
Would he throw it to Sam Champion, or would Sam Champion throw it to him?
It is hot as hell.
800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Former California Assemblyman Chuck Devore joins us later on in the hour. But right now it's time to open up the KABC Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And Randy, today's edition takes us to the San Fernando Valley.
That's right. A Studio City neighborhood council, every district in the city council has a bunch of neighborhood councils, mostly made of volunteers that are supposed to manage the smaller parts of the city. The Studio City neighborhood council has been disbanded because they were about to honor in a sex offender. Nobody realized when they got this guy on the neighborhood council that he was a registered sex offender. And when they did, the city attorney was like, well, we don't want to, we don't want to exclude people who are formerly incarcerated. So 11 out of the 14 members of the neighborhood council resigned in shame.
Was it Anthony Weiner?
No, it was not Anthony Weiner. But let's hear this story from a special investigation from KTLA.
Now to a KTLA investigation that you'll see only on 5. A stunning turn of events leads to the collapse of a neighborhood board which reports directly to the city of LA.
So did a registered sex offender really get sworn into the board?
Yes.
And what happened?
Why is anyone surprised at this?
And what happened when his fellow members found out? Well, here's KTLA's Chris Wolf with that answer.
I was an enlisted Marine, then got my commission in the Navy.
What if we told you the man standing before this panel, the man who'd be appointed to the Studio City Neighborhood Council, which advises and works with Los Angeles city leaders and also youth volunteers, may be this man, a convicted and registered sex offender?
Do you know how hard it is to be convicted of anything in California and forced to register as a sex offender?
This guy did some bad stuff.
It's fairly shocking to learn that a registered sex offender can sit on a neighborhood council board.
Is your name Ian Mitchell King?
Yes.
Ian Mitchell King from Studio City. The address he submitted on documents to the board is the same address of an Ian Mitchell King listed on the California Megan's Law website. The convicted sex offender served 13 years in prison for sexually assaulting a young woman while on duty as a cop, a school police officer.
Yikes!
A 13-year sentence? Murderers don't get that much time in California.
He was an LAUSD police officer who molested children at school, and now that he's out of prison, he wants to get into politics.
Well, I guess in prison, during his rehabilitation, he developed a craving for public service.
KTLA reviewed records, government documents, the Megan's Law Registry, and contacted the Los Angeles School Police and State Department of Corrections. King was paroled in August 2021 after serving his full sentence as defined by law.
He didn't even get out early under 57.
How does that happen?
He was a bad one.
But if this is King, the convicted sex offender, he avoided any mention of his criminal status during the Q&A process with the Studio City Neighborhood Council.
You mean he didn't open with, "Hi, I'm running for neighborhood council and I'm a registered sex offender"?
Okay, how about this question? What's with this 15-year gap on your resume? Were you studying abroad?
Were you ever in law enforcement?
No.
The meeting proceeded, the members voted yes, and Ian King took his seat on the council. But it would not be for long. Turns out, 2 members of the panel learned about King's alleged criminal record.
I don't think it's alleged.
No, once they're convicted, you don't have to say alleged anymore.
Just hours before he was set to officially join them at the table. Kim Clements was first to make the discovery and immediately alerted the board president.
Found an article and very...
You know, there's this new guy that's working with us. I just decided to Google him the other day, and whoa! Sex offender.
It reminds me of a scene from Roseanne where they're all sitting around watching the Super Bowl, and her annoying mother was there. And the annoying mother just won't shut up, and everyone just wants to focus on the game. And in this particular episode, she's in rehab or going to AA meetings, so none of them are allowed to drink around her either, so they're especially annoyed at her. And she turns to John Goodman, whose character is Dan Connor, and says, "Is that Jackson 5 boy performing at the halftime show again? He's wonderful with the children."
alarming article. I didn't even know if it was the same person. I was just stunned.
The board president contacted higher-level officials and the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office for guidance and received responses filled with legalese and warnings against harassment and defamation.
Wait a second. So the city attorney's response was, get the sex offender off the neighborhood council?
Wait a minute. Replay that. It sounds like the city told the other members to be careful about not defaming him. Is that correct?
And received responses filled with legalese and warnings against harassment and defamation.
Felt bound by what little advice we got about the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment welcomes the formerly incarcerated. The word yes came out of my mouth, and it's what just plagued me.
So the city attorney says, yes, we welcome child molesters to the neighborhood councils.
And they threatened everyone else who served on that board, be careful what you say.
After learning about their new colleagues' alleged criminal past, 11 out of 14 members resigned.
Good on them. They knew that this story was a-coming. Time to get out in front of it. It's not like this is a paying position anyway.
Oddly enough, I feel the real criminal in this situation is the city.
She's not wrong.
No, she's not wrong. We'll start voting differently, lady.
This former councilwoman does not want to be identified.
We felt the only thing we could do was to resign, to have the board collapse, so that no harm could be done to anyone.
She was unaware of Ian King's sex offender status when she voted in his favor. And she explains she had recently recruited 2 teenage girls onto the council through a youth program.
Oh, boy.
Wow. We're taking the bank robber right to the bank.
I definitely feel blindsided and I feel unsafe.
We tried repeatedly to reach out to the man at the center of the controversy.
Oh, that was them ringing the doorbell.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out what that was. Interesting transition there. That's when they rang the doorbell of the sex offender.
We tried repeatedly to reach out to the man at the center of the controversy, at his home, on the phone, online, but have been unsuccessful.
If I had known, I would have said, well, Mr. King, you know, I know that you were in prison and you just got out.
Do they do any background checks on the people that are on these neighborhood councils?
No. And here's my advice to KTLA. If you're trying to find this guy for an interview, you're wasting your time ringing his doorbell. Just go down to the Toys R Us.
Is it against your parole to be around young women?
The members of the committee were free to vote no. They could have asked him, are you a registered sex offender?
That should be the first question for every confirmation hearing going forward in the city of L.A.
Okay. Let's just say you do that, though. Do you realize how insulting of a question that is for someone who believes that they're already vetted? Could you imagine going in on a job interview and you're looking at the person making the decision across the desk, and the first question they ask you is if you're a kitty diddler?
Did you, in fact, work for law enforcement? Why were you terminated?
As it currently stands, they welcome the formerly incarcerated. However, that doesn't really work out in the real world.
So where do we stand right now? Ian Mitchell King never admitted to being a registered sex offender or a police officer. And as you just saw, he never answered any of our multiple requests for comment. The city is well aware.
Well, you sent an adult male reporter.
Well, isn't that lying on your resume? If you don't acknowledge being in prison for 15 years, let's say you were pressing license plates, that's your occupation, I guess.
The city is well aware of what's going on and is now trying to get a council back into place in Studio City. In the meantime, many are asking, how is it even possible that it's legal for a registered sex offender to be on a city board? That is where this story goes next. Stay tuned as we investigate. I'm Chris Wolf, KTLA 5 News.
There you have it. The inmates are running the asylum here in Los Angeles. Now, here's a question. Why aren't they beating on the door of the city attorney or members of the city council? Who is it that represents that district, Studio City?
Studio City, I believe, is either Krikorianville or Nithya Town.
Okay. Well, whoever it is that represents Studio City should have to answer some questions.
Yes. How exactly did this happen? Why don't you have a neighborhood council in Studio City right now?
And which side are you on? The neighborhood council side or the sex offender side?
This is Council District 2, so that is Paul Krikorian land.
Okay. Well, we know he's used to dealing with dicey situations.
I wonder if anyone's going to bring this up at the city council meeting on Friday.
If they do, we won't be able to tell with all the bleeps. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, as the weather starts to cool off, as we get closer and closer to fall, I know people are going to be going for walks at night, enjoying the beautiful view of the mountains, maybe the ocean. And if you want to have us in your ear while you do that, that's easy to do.
That's right. Go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe, download all the episodes, or search for The John Phillips Show on YouTube, subscribe to the playlist there. And this show is perfect in any climate. It's great to listen to when it's
Chilly Willy.
It's also great to listen to when
It is hot as hell.
And Randy, we're going on the road later this week.
That's right. Friday, September 15th from noon to 3, John and I will be broadcasting live at the Gelson's in Century City. Gelson's in Century City at the Westfield Shopping Center has their own wine bar, so we're going to be there from noon to 3. Come on down, hang out, let's take some pictures, grab lunch, do a tasting. It's $2 off beer and wine flights on Fridays. Let's enjoy ourselves, have a proper Jimmy Buffett Friday. Going to do some giveaways, some prize guests as well. Come on down to the Gelson's in Century City this Friday from noon to 3. We'll see you there.
It's Woo Wednesday.
Ric Flair.
It's Woo Wednesday. Yeah, baby. Woo, 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 woo.
And Randy, that means tomorrow is Throwback Thursday.
That's right. We're doing this a couple minutes early. Give us a call right now. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. If you have a suggestion for the music playlist on tomorrow's show, your favorite artist, genre, or theme, creativity is encouraged. Call us right now with your suggestion. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222.
Good luck dialing. All right, Randy, we've been playing sound of Kevin De Leon's recent public appearance. And as Ron Popeil used to say when he would be selling food dehydrators late at night, but there's more.
Here's Kevin De Leon with a nonsensical story about his relatives coming to stay with him, and he decided to tell them to use Metro.
Let me just say something real quick, because just a few weeks ago, I had some family members who visited me from out of town. College-age family members. And
That's a weird way to describe members of your family.
Well, he's probably signifying that so they stay away from a certain neighborhood council member.
And they wanted me to take them all the way to Venice because they wanted to walk the boardwalk. And I replied, I'm not driving all the way to Venice to take you out there. We got a new connector in Little Tokyo. I'm going to drop you off.
I guarantee this story did not happen.
No, it didn't.
We got a new connector in Little Tokyo. I'm going to drop you off at Museum Drive over in Highland Park, just at the bottom of Mount Washington. And you can take the E line and you can connect it right here in Little Tokyo. And you can take yourself straight over to Santa Monica, get off in Santa Monica, and walk down the street down to Venice.
And get robbed.
Did you give him a weapon for a little personal protection?
I'm not taking you. Then they called me on the phone and says, can you pick me up? Or can you pick us up? And my reply was, as you would be expected, I'm not getting on the 110 freeway to go down to the 10 freeway to go pick you up.
Again, this story did not happen.
No. And if it did happen, he sounds like an awful host.
You can get back on that line.
Can you imagine you have people from out of town staying with you and you tell them to use the metro trains?
Does he provide clean towels for them, or does he just show them where the washing machine is?
Over in Santa Monica, catch that E-line all the way to Little Tokyo. And in fact, when you're in Little Tokyo, go have, some sushi.
Racist.
Some sushi, go, sake. Even though I don't think they're at that age yet. They can't have sake yet. But go around Little Tokyo. And in fact, they did so. Then they got...
Hey, that rhymed. I'm going to save that. Just might use that in a little bit.
If he can rhyme like that, he could have been mayor.
Then they got on, and they asked me, can you guys pick us up in Little Tokyo? So, no, I'm not going to pick you up in Little Tokyo. I said, right now, I will pick you up at Museum Drive as soon as I get out of work, unless you want to wait for me after City Hall. And they took it the line and said, how was the experience? They said, it was amazing. It was clean.
Wait, do you hear the siren again? Let me boost the sound on this.
They said, it was amazing. It was clean. It was efficient. And they felt safe.
There it is. Can't do an outdoor press conference without hearing a siren.
John, if you had to put a number on it, what % of that story is true?
None of it. None of it. I don't believe he had relatives visiting him, and I don't believe there was an exchange as to whether or not he would drive them or force them to take public transportation.
They just had to go see that Venice boardwalk, the one that's full of homeless people.
Okay, they're out-of-towners. Who knows where they're coming from? Maybe they're coming from another part of California, maybe another part of the country, maybe a different country. Look at the Yelp reviews of our MTA online. That's what out-of-towners think about our trains and buses. None of them are glowing reviews. Well, it's so clean and safe and efficient. How does Los Angeles do it? Said no one ever.
Oh, we're going to miss him because he's definitely not winning this next election.
I got on that train and I saw a chalk outline of a body, and I thought to myself, look at the artistic integrity that's on display here.
Johnny, I think we have a winner for Throwback Thursday.
All right, who is it?
Steve in Cyprus. Steve, you're on the John Phillips Show. Hello.
Hi, Randy. How you doing? Hi, John.
Hi.
I heard Katie Porter is showing up at Gelson, so I'd like to hear anything having to do with food, any type of music doing with food. I'm sure she would love it.
I think we can make that work for you.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure that's the guy that always emails us as Katie Porter.
Yes, he is very prolific with that.
So if you got a food song in honor of Katie Porter, you can email us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. I'll do the mashed potato
It is a pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a former assemblyman representing Orange County in the California State Legislature. He's also the vice president of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. You can follow him on Twitter at Chuck Devore, Assemblyman Chuck Devore. Welcome.
Hey, great to be with you again.
Assemblyman, you and I had a conversation the last time you were on that has been re-triggered in my brain, given everything that I'm consuming in the news media. Last time you came on, we were talking about the advanced age of President Joe Biden and his decision to run for re-election. I believe he'll be 82 years old by the time Election Day comes around. And you had said that when you ran for the U.S. Senate in California, you were significantly younger than you are today and significantly younger than Joe Biden, and that it absolutely wore you down, and you don't know if you would be up for doing it if you were to run statewide today in a place like California. Since then, the Washington Post columnist David Ignatius came out with a column saying that Democrats would benefit if Joe Biden would not run for re-election. He's too old to serve as president. The public is aware of that. And by running for re-election, he's hurting the Democrats' chances at keeping the White House in their column. We've also seen Utah Republican Senator Mitt Romney announce that he won't be running for re-election. He said one of the reasons that he's not running for re-election is that he would be too old to serve adequately in the U.S. Senate with another 6-year term. On the opposite side, we've also seen former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, who I believe is 83 years old, will be 84 years old by Election Day next year. She announced that she will be running for re-election and would be 86 years old at the end of that term. What do you make of everything that we've seen with these politicians and when they decide enough is enough and when they decide there's more for the taking?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think that there's two things going on. First of all, not everybody ages at the same rate, right? Some people have good genetics, they take care of themselves, they've had good luck and haven't suffered from different things that tend to push the needle on the aging process. There's also the issue of staff and the people around you. So as well as your advisors, people who can be honest with you and say, I don't think you're up to this task anymore, versus people who might be making a little bit of money on the side or could be benefiting personally by their access to power, their control of the power. And so I think all of those things come into play, especially with politicians, given the huge amounts of money and power that they represent these days. I don't think it's a clean-cut issue either way. That said, people should be taking this into account. And with the David Ignatius article, I think it's very important for people to understand this is not just some random columnist. This is a guy who is as close as possible to a spokesperson for the permanent establishment in Washington, D.C. This is a guy that gets like a leak every few days from the CIA. So when he speaks and writes something like he just did, it's not just one columnist's musings. It's kind of the official line from permanent Washington, D.C.
What you just described to me about the staff members of these politicians accumulating huge amounts of power, it reminds me of what Gavin Newsom said to Chuck Todd of NBC News when he was asked about our senior U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein. He didn't say that Feinstein was serving ably. He said that she had a wonderful staff who was serving the people of California ably. And it reminds me of Frank Sinatra at the end of his career when he was selling out arenas in Japan. He would travel around the globe, packed houses everywhere he went. But he was over the hill at that point. He was falling down on stage. He was forgetting his lines. He didn't look very good. He was starting to appear gaunt at the end. And people were saying, why is it that they continue to put this man on the road, that they continue to humiliate him like this, when you know if he had anything to say about it, he would say, it's time for me to exit the stage. And the answer was, he was making a lot of money for a lot of people around him. And if they didn't put him on a plane and send him all around the globe and put him in these situations, then there was no payday for them either. And they wanted to protect their payday.
Yeah, well, of course, there's a huge difference between an entertainer who perhaps through some degree of loyalty and love of his personnel is trying to keep the act going another few more months versus people who represent us in our form of government, making decisions that impact not only people alive today, but future generations as far as defense spending and taxation and how big the deficit is going to be and all this. And, something about Newsom and his comment about Feinstein staff, it's really important to understand that part of what's going on here is that Gavin Newsom does not want to have to appoint somebody to replace Dianne Feinstein, or if he does, he wants to make sure that it's someone like Adam Schiff, as opposed to somebody else. So you've got a lot of politics kind of going on behind the scenes as far as what would end up triggering the governor from making that appointment. And some people think that, for example, Pelosi's crew wants to keep Feinstein in there as long as possible. I think I misspoke, actually. I think it's Newsom who wants to make the appointment and Pelosi who doesn't. So there's some internal struggles going on over the fading legacy of Dianne Feinstein.
As someone who had to get on a plane every single week to go up to Sacramento and vote on legislation and write legislation and debate the main issues that face the state, is that something, let's say you were a powerful committee chairman, let's say you were in a position where you had great influence over the government in which you serve, would you be willing to sit on that plane every single week and travel across the country and put yourself through that to maintain that power?
Well, again, it depends on where you are, right? So if you're on the West Coast, you're looking at a 6-hour flight out to D.C. If you're a member of Congress, you pretty much have to do that almost every week because it's expected you're going to be back in your home district over the weekend. If you're a U.S. senator and you have an election cycle every 6 years, you can pretty much phone it in right after you get elected. And then there's the issue of staff and what the staff can do to support you. A huge difference, though, between being a member of a legislature where you have dozens, if not hundreds of people who are working together in this corporate body and thousands of staff versus the chief executive, whether you're a governor or the president. In those cases, while you certainly have a lot of staff, there's a lot of decisions that you have to make constantly on a daily basis that have huge import, as opposed to when you're a member of a legislature and you can make mistakes and there's hundreds of other people to vote with you or against you, as well as staff to correct things, as well as the ability to go back and revisit past votes. Whereas with a president, if they make a decision that might involve war and peace, that's it. You can't go back and get a mulligan on that one.
Assemblyman Chuck Devore, former member of the California State Legislature and current vice president of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. You can follow him on Twitter at Chuck Devore. Assemblyman Devore, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Well, Johnny, we got a whole bunch of emails in response to Kevin De Leon touting that his fake relatives needed to go to the museum area metro station.
We got a new connector in Little Tokyo. I'm going to drop you off at Museum Drive.
There was a stabbing there last week.
That's no good.
No, it's not.
It's 2:54. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC.